Hello and welcome, and thank you so much for being here. I am Jade. So, what's breaking currently is that one of Donald Trump's advisor, or I should say, former Trump's advisor, I mean, it doesn't make any sense for him to still be keeping somebody like Robert Preston Morris as his current advisor. But, anyways, Trump's former religious advisor, spiritual advisor, has been accused of some very, very, very heinous sex crimes against a child. So let me go ahead and read what is being reported here. And this is bad, okay? This is really, really bad. And for somebody that is as close to Trump as Robert Preston Morris to have been indicted after a grand jury investigation, that should tell you that the things that he did, whew, but then again, a jury found Donald Trump guilty, but alas, he's the president of the United States, sadly and unfortunately. But let me go ahead and read this. Says this article from MSNBC says former Trump spiritual advisor accused of child sex abuse surrenders in Oklahoma. So it says Robert Preston Morris, a former Texas megachurch pastor and former spiritual advisor to President Donald Trump, accused of sexual abuse, has surrendered to Oklahoma authorities. Morris, 63, turned himself over to officials in Osage County on Monday after a grand jury indicted him last week with 5 counts of lewd or indecent act with a child. A spokesperson for Oklahoma Attorney General Office told the Associated Press. Morris turned himself in before 8 a.m. Um, Central Standard Time. The Dallas Morning News reported, citing the Osage County Sheriff's Office. The former pastor surrendered his passport and was released on 50,000 bond, Osage County officials told the outlet. Morris' attorney Mark Martin declined to comment on the charges, but told the AP that he anticipated entering a not guilty plea on his client's behalf. In 2024, Morris resigned as pastor of the Dallas area Gateway Church after a woman accused him of abusing her in the 1980s, when she was 12 years old. So the woman Cindy Clemisher told NBC News that Morris, now a senior pastor of Gateway Church in South Lake, Texas, was staying with her family on Christmas night in 1992. She was 12 at the time. He was 21. Clemisher, now 54, said he invited her to his room where he instructed her to lie down on her back. Then he touched her breast and felt under her panties. The first several similar encounter the first of several similar encounters that would span the next 4.5 years, she said. Okay. In a statement released to WFAA in Dallas, Morris admitted he was involved in inappropriate behavior with a young lady. He said a young lady. It was kissing and petting and not intercourse, but it was wrong, Morris said at the time. In March of 1987, this situation was brought to light and it was confessed and repented of. I submitted myself to God. I submitted myself to the elders of the Grove Church and the young lady's father. They asked me to step out of ministry and receive counseling and freedom ministry, which I did. Since that time, I have worked in purity and accountability in this area. In this area, meaning there are various other areas that he has not exactly walked in purity and accountability. Like, this is so crazy and so wild to me. Imagine, do you know how deplorable somebody like Trump has to be to even want somebody with such a disgusting history in his space? And this is not even a situation where this was made up. I didn't do. Now, he actually caught to it. He actually admitted to it. Imagine a situation where he admitted to this much. So just imagine what else would have happened, what other stuff happened that he did not admit to. Just let that sink in for a moment. So let's go ahead and read this. Let's listen to this news coverage by Chris Hayes of MSNBC. Yeah, I always enjoy Chris Hayes's stuff. Let's go ahead and listen.
One of the ways Donald Trump won the 2016 election was through the complete embrace of him by evangelicals, both the base and pastors and leaders in that movement. One of the most prominent is a pastor named Robert Morris. He founded a Texas megachurch in SlCK, Texas.
There is no way Trump would have known. There is no way he would not have known that this man had a history. Again, it just tells you the kind of person that he is, because he needs to surround himself by people with questionable character so that it can make him look good, basically, so that he doesn't feel a sense of judgment from them, because they have all done disgusting, sick, twisted, criminal things, basically, and they are all in the same company.
Morris was also a spiritual advisor to Trump while he was in the White House. Here he is in the Rose Garden in 2020, in SlCK, Texas. Pastors and leaders in that embrace. One of the ways Donald Trump won the 2016 election was through the complete embrace of him by evangelicals, both the base and pastors and leaders in that movement. One of the most prominent is a pastor named Robert Morris. He founded a Texas megachurch in SlCK, Texas. Morris was also a spiritual advisor to Trump while he was in the White House. Here he is in the Rose Garden in 2020, just a few rows behind where then Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett's family and the First Lady are about to sit. And here is Trump visiting Morris's church earlier that summer, giving his personal assessment of the man.
So I want to thank Pastors Robert Morris and Steve Dullen. They're great people. Great people with a great reputation. I have to say that. Great reputation.
Okay, let me pause and say this. I will never understand Black MAGA. I refuse to understand Black MAGA. It's like shooting yourself in the foot because somebody gave you a gun. How is any of that bad? How is any of that good? Either way you slice it, it's all going to end up in like the same gutter trash.
And Gateway Church, the team has been incredible in hosting us. And I'd now like to ask Pastor Morris and Bishop Jackson to lead us in prayer.
Well, Robert Morris just resigned from his church following allegations that he sexually abused a child. In a statement to an evangelical news site, Morris said he was involved in an inappropriate sexual behavior with a young lady. Those are his words. He didn't mention that the young lady in question was a 12-year-old girl.
Sick. That's what they do, right? And that's why this is so interesting. When they cop to things, they don't necessarily cop through and through. They say just about enough to make it seem as though they are repentant, but they don't always ever tell everything, ever. Like, anybody who heard the way that he phrased it, the way that he worded it and said, young lady, would assume that this is somebody who was maybe 18 years old or 19 years old, a young adult, not knowing that we are talking about a literal child.
In his statement, Trump's one-time spiritual advisor admitted he continued to molest the child on, quote, several occasions over the next few years. Mike Hixenbaugh is a senior investigative reporter for NBC News who's been all over the story. He writes about Pastor Morris in his book, They Came for the Schools, One Town's Fight Over Race and Identity and the New War for America's Classrooms. And he joins me now. Mike, this is something that happened a long time ago that we are learning about now. Take us through how this came out.
Well, last week, the survivor in this case, Cindy Clemishire, who has tried telling the story in different ways for years, came forward in a blog post and spelled out in very clear detail how when she was 12 years old on Christmas in 1982, Pastor Morris, who was a family friend then, a young traveling evangelist, invited her into his room where he was at the guest room at her house and proceeded to molest her, the first of several instances where he would do that over the next 4.5 years. And as you mentioned in the lead-in, Pastor Morris and Gateway Church responded initially by saying, this is an old sin. Pastor Morris has addressed this moral failure of this relationship with a young lady. And, he's repented and this has been taken care of. Flash forward a few days.
Moral failure with this relationship. Again, relationship, making it seem as though the person involved, the victim in this situation, was like an adult, a consenting adult. That's how they try to minimize it.
There was a lot of pressure around this when people started pointing out, yeah, the young lady was 12, that's a child. And yesterday he resigned from the church that he founded 20 plus years ago.
Now, he had been telling a sort of story about a kind of redemption arc, about stepping away from the ministry in the 1980s because he had been confronted by the then girl's father at that time. Is that right?
That's right. And I've been talking with, former Gateway members and former pastors at the church. They talk about how he talked about this story all the time. And it became kind of like a signature part of his biography that he had this moral failing when he was young. And it was around sexual immorality with, again, a young lady. In some tellings, he would describe himself almost as a victim, saying that the young lady had a Jezebel spirit and had tempted him. And in fact, that she's the one that made it continue. He tried to stop it and she made it continue. So he tells these stories as a way of saying, you should be open about your sin and come forward. But in reality, we now know he was covering and papering over the reality of child sexual abuse, which is, a crime.
He also has been quite a prominent member of the evangelical movement, politically influential. I mean, this is not just there are obviously many evangelical pastors, thousands, probably tens of thousands in this country. This is a particularly connected and powerful individual.
Absolutely. Yes. Trump's spiritual advisor. He's really leaned into the idea of, advocating for a restoration of Christian morality in America through Republican politics. And so you see that with him inviting Glenn Beck to speak from the pulpit at his church and being aligned with Donald Trump. I write about extensively in the book. He's also gotten very engaged over the last few years with kind of warning about the dangers children face in schools. And this, I want to emphasize this, the survivor here in this case, Cindy, doesn't want this story to become just about politics. She's very primarily concerned with Robert Morris not being in leadership and kind of attacking the culture that allows this to permeate. But at the same time, lots of other people have watched as people like Robert Morris have warned that teachers and school librarians are a danger to children because, and have used the language that they're grooming children because they have books on their shelves. Morris has preached about that from the pulpit and endorsed specific school board candidates who would fight against this Satan's work in school libraries. People who saw that play out are really frustrated and outraged now, knowing he's pointing at school librarians. Some of these books that were being targeted actually are literature that describe grooming as a way of helping kids understand what warning signs to watch out for.
And this is exactly the reason why they are fighting tooth and nail to remove books from school. Books that will teach, students the signs and what to look out for are the things that are being targeted because they don't want them to know that what these sick, twisted people in power, in authority, what they're doing is wrong. They don't want the young children from a very early age to understand exactly how wrong what they are doing is. they know exactly what they're doing by banning books, by removing certain books. It is for their own selfish interest. It has nothing to do with whatever it is that they claim they're trying to protect. It is for their own selfish interest, so that more people, more young children are not immune from a very young age to their antics and their wickedness and their evil, basically.
And so to have him be standing in the pulpit warning about this, given his history, has been
Yeah.
a lot really difficult for people to process. And there's a lot of anger both among survivors and educators who've been targeted by this rhetoric.
Right.
Yeah, I would note in 2017, as you reported, he called on parishioners to support a bill pitched by Texas Governor Greg Abbott, a Republican, as a way to, quote, protect the safety of women and children that would have banned transgender people from using public bathrooms that correspond with their genders. Important to protect children from sexual abuse. On that, I agree. Mike Hicksonbaugh, thank you very much.
Okay, so let me go ahead and say, let me keep reading. We've already heard basically this. So now, I guess we have to wait and see what happened and see if he's going to end up in prison, which hopefully he does. But let me know what you guys think in the comment, like and share. Another shameless Trump supporter, another shameless somebody in Trump's camp, very close member of the Trump's camp, has been once again exposed. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment, like and share. I will catch you later. Bye.